All right.
Space Jam is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
You're a bunch of haters.
It's fantasy. It's
anyone,
fantasy.
you're fantasy.
You're right.
This guy watches Dungeons and Dragons, and then he says Space Jam is fantasy.
Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind.
Get this shit popping. All right, let's fucking get it popping then. Everybody, this is the Free to Tango podcast. I'm just gonna get right into it. You know what I mean? Why? You know what you're here at this point for. I don't gotta get too much fanfare. We just did a lot of talking about nuts flapping and stuff. So, episode 7. Let's start there. Episode 7 of The Last Dance. That was on Saturday. I have a theme for this one. I'm going to start by saying what the theme was. The theme for Saturday was, to me, I mean, for episode 7 was winning has a price. All right. I think that's pretty much the best way to sum up that's episode 7. Now, I think this is also the episode that he's supposed to look bad in, right? Maybe I'm fucking crazy. Nothing looked bad to me, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But, yeah. The ending of episode 7, you could shoot straight into my veins. I never have wanted to play basketball more than at the end of episode 7. You know what I mean? Like, that was a feeling that I can't even yo, I've seen that last minute and a half, whatever that is. I've seen it no less than 15 times in the last 2 days. I stop and watch it every single time I see it on my timeline. It's incredible. Like, that's one of my favorite scenes of anything I've ever seen. But the point is, yeah, it has a price. And we see MJ in his most rawest form. Vic, we talked about this yesterday a little bit, and I'm going to say it again. I think that is MJ. You know what I mean? That on the court, the shit talking, that like aggressive nature, that alpha, like the whole thing. That is MJ. The rest of the time is a show he's putting on. It's the front, like we talked about yesterday. They're having the two faces. You have to have two faces. One face to be presentable to everyone else, and then the face that's like, this is us talking shit. This is who we are. And we got to see that in episode 7. I mean, and the other thing is, I mean, yeah, I don't even know where to start. So you know what, Craig Sager. Rest in peace to Craig Sager asked the most thug question. I can't believe I kind of thought that was crazy. He asked that question. The episode starts with him asking Jerry Krause, so how do you guys manage with all the backstabbing going on?
Yeah, that's so gangster. That clip is also part of the intro of every episode.
Yeah, correct.
That is super wild that he would just come out and say backstabbing.
Yeah.
There's no good backstabbing, right? The connotation of that is like that you are all snakes.
Mm-hmm.
You're all doing each other dirty.
Yeah.
Right. There's no way to misconstrue that, or there's no way to make it sound lighter than what it actually is. He's saying you guys are all screwing each other over. How does that feel?
Yeah. How are you staying focused while you're fucking each other?
Yeah, and a reporter's supposed to be like objective almost. Like, right? So like that's like almost like he's like analyzing all like, oh, you guys are like backstabbing each other. Like that was like mad out of pocket, but that's probably one of the most savage questions I've heard.
Yeah. Fred, your internet sucks.
That's
right
all
now,
I got.
I just want you to know that your internet sucks right now.
Pay that bill, brother.
Yeah, your internet sucks. You know what? Why don't you try turning off your picture real quick and seeing if that helps? And maybe we go this podcast without your face showing, which is fine with me. I don't.
Can you hear me good though?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you better now. Well, let's try this for a little bit, and then maybe you can turn your camera back on later, because I think it's just fucking it up. Yeah. But anyway, so back to the point. I just picture Craig in the most colorful jacket. Yeah. Asking that question. That's the only thing I get there. I was like, and it sucks that they don't show him. You know what I mean? And I was like, yo, is that Craig Sager? And because I wasn't sure at first. You know what I mean? Yeah. R.I.P. to Craig Sager. That's just a fucking what a way to kick the episode off.
Way to go, Fred. I mean, way to go, Craig.
Mm-hmm. And way to go, Fred too.
Yeah, way to go, Fred. Always. You talked about the emotion of winning. Well, I wrote down the emotion of winning. Mm-hmm. Right. At that last moment, and I was a little upset because I listened to a podcast with Zach Lowe and Jack McCullum, the guy who wrote the Dream Team book, and he spoiled that moment. Like he says that moment is coming, and I couldn't believe he did it. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, why would you say that?
It's like the last 3 minutes of the pod, and he throws that out there. He said it's like one of the best moments he had ever seen in sports, period. But it's like, I think to a certain extent what you were saying about having multiple faces, to me that's like code switching, right? It's like, I don't know if any one of those versions of Jordan is more him than the other. This is just all one part of one complete picture. And that what we like to do, especially when people we don't know, we have to make them a certain way. Jordan is this nice guy, and that's how I'm going to understand him to be, because it's easier than looking at him as this complex person. And we do this in history too, right? But the people we romanticize are just these good people, and the people we hate are just these awful people. But they're obviously always going to be more than that. And I think I tweeted this at you or something, but for us having this back knowledge already, this isn't new information. So it's not hard for us to be like, oh yeah, of course he was like this, you know? But for someone who doesn't know, for someone who doesn't, in particular, someone like who didn't play on a sport where like a lot was asked of them, or just have like a regular life where they have to work well with other people, and sometimes you have to be the person and be like, listen, I need more from you.
Yep.
Right. In those moments, like, you have to be the bad guy. And that's why success at anything, at any level, is not easy to come by, because there's not a ton of people out there who are willing to be the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's different ways to manage. You know, I've always believed that. And this is just Jordan's way of managing. This is how he manages, or how he gets the best out of the people that are around him. There's positive reinforcement that can do that too, depending on who the player is and how that person operates. You know what I mean? Everyone's just coded differently. So saying one person is, I think that we, like anything, we get into a situation where we look at different management styles or different styles of being a leader, for example, and try to digest which one was better and which one is worse. So someone will look at, I don't know. People always want to make one better than the other. You know what I mean? So they'll look at MJ's and say, well, is this the best way to get the best out of? Well, when you look at the winning they did, sure seems like it was the best way to do it. You know what I mean? But then if you look at maybe how the players have a complicated feeling towards him, was it the best way? Who knows? There's no right or wrong. But to your point, you know what I mean? But this is, whether you want to say the emotional winning, or again, the price of winning is to be the bad guy, quote unquote, is to be the guy that can't be the nice guy at all times, but is going to get the most out of everybody by putting him through this fire that MJ puts him through. And yeah, again, I wouldn't thrive in that situation. You know what I mean? That's me. There are people who would thrive in that situation, obviously, as we've seen. It makes me wonder sometimes, like, and we've had this conversation, and, obviously it's impossible to deal in, like, I don't want to spend time talking about hypotheticals, right? But like, how good would Scottie be? I mean, Scottie says it in this episode that he needed MJ. We knew that all along. We've already known that. But how good would Scottie be if he doesn't have MJ? You know what I mean? Is he an all-star? Is he all NBA? Is he a bench guy? You know what I mean? What is he without MJ bringing that fire out of him? It's a question that I ponder all the time, especially when people now are going all the way right on Scottie about how great he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also have always thought about that a lot, and I think I've kind of always gone back and forth depending on like how far I swung the pendulum, having to like correct myself. But I don't know, man. I think Scottie would have always been a really good player, but a lot of the recognition he gets is because of the rings, right? But as we saw and as we know, right, he doesn't win anything when Jordan is gone. He wins nothing after Jordan as well.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the safest bet to say that he probably would have always been like a multiple-time All-Star, but not remembered in the same kind of way, in the same kind of reverence that he kind of gets. And like you said, like especially with the ESPN rankings that just dropped, where they have him like over Charles Barkley and stuff like that. Like we can do a whole thing on that alone, but I don't know. I can't imagine a world where he's the best player on a team that wins multiple championships, maybe not even one.
I think he definitely with Scotty. You know, I don't think I kind of agree with Vic. Like he's an all-star, but he's not. I don't know if he's the guy. Like he's not. Like, you know, like in this day and age, like he would be like the, you know, not the star, but like kind of like the second fiddle. Like he's that complimentary good player. But by himself, you know, I don't know if he's like carrying, you know, a lot of teams through like playoffs and whatnot. But yeah, and Jordan, when I was looking at just the way he handles practice, I think what happened is, you know, the reason why that elevates people is because you over time you develop like a callus, right? So like Brian, you say you don't think you could play with someone like that. I think you could, right? Because then what happens is you you have an edge. Am I breaking up again?
No, you're good. You're good.
Am I breaking up? Okay.
Oh, now you're breaking up again.
Right. So the thing is, I'm good.
Everything is going a minute late. Fred, you need to restart your
now?
internet. Fred, have you tried restarting your internet yet?
No, not yet.
Fred, restart your internet and leave me alone because you're frustrating me. Vic has also told you to restart the router in the message.
All right, but so I think I could pick up where Fred was trying to go, though.
Okay.
This idea that it's normalized, right? So you're saying you, as the Brian Miranda that exists right now in this moment, could not deal with that. The difference is that if you got to that level, right? If you had the skill to get to the NBA, skill and athleticism, you would have already then been through those environments, right? And even though like a lot of not a lot, but there were definitely guys that could not play with him because of how intense he was. I think what Fred's trying to say is that it wouldn't seem as foreign, right?
Yeah, so, I see what you're saying.
Like your experience as a like playing organized sports is a lot different than like obviously professional athlete, right? There's just more on it. Like, and if you could have made it to that point with all the expectations, all the pressure, then there's more likely that you could. But I can't remember the player's name, but I remember that Jerry in one of the books that I've read, Jerry Krause trades for a backup guard from Portland. And he was very excited about this guy coming to the team. He thought he was going to add a lot. And he asked for a trade, like midseason.
Yeah.
It was like, I can't, like, because first Jordan hated Krause, so he's like, all right, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Bust his ass in practice, but he couldn't take it either, right?
Yeah. My fault. Go ahead. You're going to keep going?
No, I was going to follow the line of reason where, like, when you see, like, someone like Steve Kerr, if you look at Steve Kerr in a vacuum, I don't think any of us would assume he would do well in a situation where someone is coming at his fucking neck all day long, but he did, though. Yeah. He actually excelled.
Yeah. See, I also think in my example is not only just the image that we perpetuate about me being soft or something like that, which is a joke that we do, but also that I am wired to be a leader. You know what I mean? That's just who I am, not to big myself up. So I don't know how I would manage being in a situation where, one, I am an emotional person, but two, where I'm like, but I'm a leader too. I don't know how we're gonna, you know what I mean? Like if put it this way, if me and MJ come in the league together, for example, I don't know how that works. If I come in years after, then that works out better because I can then respect him in that way. You know what I mean? But if we're like, or if he comes in under me, how the fuck, I would never last in that environment. You know what I mean? But if I'm the younger guy, I probably to your point, I probably would work it out, but it would be hard. It would be hard. I'm an emotional person. It would show on my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I'm very much more likely to not. It's not like a situation where I'm going to get bullied. It's going to be a situation where I'm gonna be the Steve Kerr. You know what I mean? I'm going to be the one who's like, I'm going to step to you. You know what I mean? I'm not a bitch. A bitch in the way of a punk bitch, like a chump. You know what I mean? Not like the way rappers call women bitches, because I don't believe in that either. Anyway, so yeah, we'll let Fred, if he wants to talk about this when he comes back, he can talk about this when he comes back. The one quote I did write down though, that just a quote I want to spit out there: "The die a hero or live long enough to become a villain."
Yep, I thought about that too.
Yeah, it applies to MJ. You could say that's the theme too, because that is. But see again, and I definitely want Fred on here when we talk about this. All right, Fred. Yeah. So boop, back in touch with Fred here. Fred, you want to go ahead and finish the point you were making about the callus developed by dealing with someone like Michael Jordan?
Yeah. So I mean, basically, I think when you play with people like that, over time, you just absorb that type of like insanity, and then so you carry that in when you play your opponent, right? So, you're always on edge, and also you're not for like someone who is a little, like, for lack of a better word, softer. You don't want to let someone like Michael Jordan down. And I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you. But I'm saying like that's the standard, and you don't even want to put yourself in the bullseye of Michael Jordan.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
so it's like you're constantly there's like no time to like kind of like take it easy, and do any of that stuff that Jordan didn't like. So he created a standard of like just being on like raw, and like Pippen, I think he really absorbed that. Like you see like a lot of like dick moves by Pippen, and like that, I think that's because of Jordan. I don't know if Pippen was like that, but I think a lot of what both I think off the court and on the court, I feel like Pippen kind of absorbed and was like, he saw that he's great, I'm great, like in Pippen's mentality. Even like when I hear interviews with him, he doesn't talk. He talks similar to Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like he's there's like almost an arrogance, arrogance. Like he's not very humble. I guess in the stuff I've heard of him talking. So I do see that, I feel like he rubbed off. He took a lot from what like Jordan's like kind of mentality.
No, that's a good point, because you know what? When I think about watching Scotty talk, sometimes I think that his personality is a little bit manufactured. You know what I mean? Whereas MJ is naturally this way. Scotty sounds like he's rehearsing a character in some ways. You know what I mean? Not to say that he's fraudulent or that he's not real, but it just seems like, this is something he learned later in life. You know what I mean? He adapted this later.
He's like the equivalent of like someone who's like a follower, and they follow like the wrong people. Like that, they're not like that, but then all of a sudden they get in the wrong crowd and they're easily influenced, and they become like that.
Correct. Yeah.
That's what it feels like it was like, yo, you were never like that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're this dude, right?
Yeah.
And we all know people in our lives who we knew when we were kids, and then all of a sudden now they they think they're
they're gangster now.
Yeah. So I feel like that was you're right, like kind of like manufactured, but it was like learned. It wasn't like something he was like, even though I mean he had a pretty tough life. I don't know if he was like that before, because guess what? There's footage of him getting smacked in the face by Charles Oakley, and he ate that.
Well, and I
will not let him forget it.
To the point, some people have tough lives and become hardened the way, like I always bring up Iverson. You know what I mean? And you know why? Because people completely forget. There was I actually tweeted at someone today who put up a picture of MJ, Kobe, LeBron, and Steph, and said this is the 4 most influential people in I don't know if they said NBA history or whatever it was, and I said replace Kobe with AI, because really Iverson has more to do with how a lot of the guard play is today than I think Kobe did. And not only that, but everything about how athletes express themselves today is unafraid because of AI. But the point being that a guy like AI could come up through a hard fucking life and be an alpha and be, like hardened and can be a jerk almost. And then you can have a guy like Scotty who maybe is a little bit obvious, just a softer, like a softer version, and needs, someone that can bring him along like MJ.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's how you grow up, though.
But
it's not how you grow up. Scotty's parents are a lot different than like Iverson's mom.
Absolutely.
Like if you go back and watch some of those games, or even just some of the stuff she would say on camera, like his mom was ratchet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he grew up in the projects, and that's because Scotty grew up in a rural area.
Correct. It's different. It's different cultures.
Yeah, AI grew up in the projects. All right, but this is a good segue. So let's pick your poison here. Do we want to talk about Scotty sitting out the shot and how much of a biatch he is? No, I'm joking. I don't want to call him a bitch. I don't know him personally. Or do we want to talk about the misses on MJ's life and the propaganda stuff that's kind of going on here?
I kind of want to talk about Scotty real quick.
All right, let's talk about Scotty real quick, since you're answered first and Victor was still thinking. So Scotty sits out. Listen, again, and all of this is going to come back to the major propaganda that my man is running. This is Nazi Germany level propaganda right here by MJ. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Scotty sits out the last shot. This is going back to what I said last week. Scotty looks a lot worse in all of this. One, look at the conversation we just had. We just said Scotty looks manufactured almost. That he doesn't even seem very authentic. And that now we see him sit out the last shot. And that's there is no pass. He knows there's no pass. We talked about this briefly yesterday, Victor. There's no pass. We know it. He knows. And even him saying, oh, if I had another chance, I would do it again. No, you wouldn't. That's crazy. Insane. You just want to justify it. Again, this is that manufactured part of him trying to be like I'm certain in my behavior. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not certain in your behavior because you just apologized for it.
Right.
And you know that it was the wrong move.
Right.
And then again, the very next year, the Bulls are not good. They're not close to good. They're 34 and 31. They're a 6 seed.
They're average.
Yeah, they're average. They're an average team.
Yep.
Now, it is important to point out they lost Oakley that year. They lose, I think, Paxson. They lose.
They lost Grant.
And they lost Grant. I'm sorry. Who did I say? Oakley. I'm sorry. They lost Horace Grant. They lose Paxson. So they lose some depth. And then they get MJ back and almost upset the Magic. So, again, MJ the GOAT. But, yeah. I mean, go ahead. That's all I got to say. Scotty doesn't look good. I don't know what else to say about that.
He doesn't.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the and what's crazy is like to see it like in that and shown in that type of way. It's one thing like when you see it like the game, like just game footage, but to see that is, it's probably one of the most. I mean, that's probably one of the most despicable things you could do in sports. No.
Yep.
I'd rather have someone take steroids than leave me out on the. You know what I mean?
What's funny is this is something when I was in high school, I was soft. You know what I mean? No question about it, I was soft. We played football together in the senior year, and Fred is agreeing too much. Chill out, Fred, with your head bobbing. You're not fucking swimming. You're not floating in the ocean. Why you bobbing your head so goddamn much? I was soft in high school. We played football, and I hurt my knee. And, I voluntarily pretty much sat out because I was soft. And Fred is the first person I remember who basically posed that question to me in a way that I felt ashamed. That was like, you're going to voluntarily sit out? You know what I mean? And since that day, since that time, I understood it differently, and I understood better. I said, I would never do that again. Now I play for less stakes, you know what I mean, when I'm injured, for no stakes at all. And I'm like, no, I'm going to play. And so when I saw that, I thought about that. Like, I don't think most NBA players are wired to sit out a preseason game. Listen, credit to James Harden. Harden talks about this all the time. If I'm healthy, I'm playing. You know what I mean? James Harden doesn't take games off. You can hate him or love him or whatever, but it's just a different people value it differently. KD is not going to come back. Again, people value the shit differently. And now KD might not be healthy, but it paints the picture of how we depict KD, of how we understand him. It just furthers the belief that we have that he's kind of like, man, fuck this guy. And to say fuck this guy, bring that back to Phil Jackson. How many coaches? I mean, listen, I'm sure coaches have said that before, but in that type of a moment, your best player doesn't sit out and the coach says, fuck him then. You know what I mean? Like that to me was like, and then the meme, we haven't gotten enough traction on the meme yet of Phil sitting in the locker room with his one leg up, angry as shit. You know the picture I'm talking about? We haven't gotten the traction on that meme yet, but it's going to explode because I would use that for any time I've been frustrated in my life. It just like really engulfs it. I mean, what else? I mean, is there anything else we can add here about Scotty? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are those things, man, that like it like, and like they said, it was a stain, and like that was gonna be a stain with him forever, and it is, and even what makes it worse is saying that he'd do it again, right? And because we've all played sports, and when you play, especially when you're super competitive or even playing real competitive, like you're at war. You could be like the nicest person. Like I feel like I'm a really nice person. I can like dab up everybody, whatever. But during the game, like when you're playing a serious game, like it's a battle, right? You're arguing, doing all this stuff, and you got your like if one of your players gets in a fight, like or an argument, you right there with him, right? He sat on the bench, bro, and like at the end, and he not only is that like completely back, like just turning your back on your teammates, but he took that moment for granted, right? He wasn't on the court for that moment. He does not have a place in that moment, and he's staying that whole thing.
Oh, in fact, he does have a place in that moment, and it's that he didn't show up at all for the moment.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? It's even worse.
Yeah, and the thing is, yeah, and it really shows how screwed like Tony Kukoc was too, because you know he has this great moment, and and it was ruined because he was so selfish, and it's one of those things like I don't think if somebody did that to me like in a game anywhere, I will feel so betrayed. I don't think I could ever trust that person. Like that goes way deeper.
Yeah, for sure.
That goes way deeper. Like you look at that stuff in life, like it's kind of like where you probably shouldn't, but to me that would have been like the worst thing someone could do.
Well, people say sports emulate life, and I think that's like a fair point. I mean, listen, Bill Cartwright story, I've heard that story before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I get into these things, like when I'm watching it, I start getting like goosebumps. I start getting really revved up. And I was like saying the story as it was coming up. I'm like, oh, this is when Bill Cartwright cries. You know what I mean? And that's not soft or anything like that, but that's to your point, man. That's like a betrayal. You know what I mean? Like you betrayed. These dudes feel betrayed now to the point that this man is giving an impassioned speech. He's being brought to tears by your fucking actions. I mean, that's crazy. And in fact, I think to that story's point, I might be wrong, Vic. You might know better. I don't think Phil ever talks to the team about it. I think they go into the locker room, Bill Cartwright gets up to talk, and that's the last time they speak about it. You know what I mean? Because Phil kind of knew at that point. He knew already. He knew what needed to be said was said, and it was handled that night in the locker room. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've heard differently.
I've never read anything that said like Phil explicitly said anything like addressing like I don't think he had anything long-winded to say.
Yeah.
I think he let it be handled in house. But to Fred's point, though, the next year they go from Eastern Conference Finals to being an average team. And, they lost Horace Grant. But, I mean, you go from Eastern Conference Final to
losing Horace Grant is not enough.
But like this, again, is just more evidence to the persona that Scotty felt like he had to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, like, the special thing, one of the many special things about being Michael Jordan is that you get to win, and you get to win on your terms because you're that good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But there's few, if any, at all, who get to win in that manner. In the way where him being selfish was good for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Scotty's case, it is absolutely not. And to the point where they still win the game without him.
Mm-hmm. No, you know what? That's such a good point. There was a great quote I read, maybe a month or two ago, and it said something. It's to the effect of, when you are like fully yourself, when you fully embrace yourself, everything you do. Man, damn, I'm gonna fuck this up. I hate when I fuck these things up. It's like everything you do becomes natural and you feel good about it, right? But when you're doing things that are unnatural to you, then you respond in a way that is not good. You respond in a negative way, and that's exactly to the point we're making here. Scotty is not MJ, but Scotty felt like he needed to be MJ in this moment, right? Winning on his terms. And the way he responded, because it was not him, it's not ingrained in him, he responded in a way that does not actually emulate MJ in any way. He responds in the complete opposite way, in fact. You know what I mean? We've seen, it's just, MJ has had the ball in the moment and made the right pass. All we're asking is, Scotty, the clock isn't going to be ticking when you make the right pass here. You know what I mean? And yeah, you're not going to get the opportunity to score, but we need you to make the right pass. Because guess what? And again, Fred, me and Vic talked about this last night. The play before, Scotty launches a terrible 3-point shot. It's just horrible. It bricks off the side of the rim. It's a terrible shot. You know what I mean? They were up 23 in the third quarter. They give back the lead, and a result in this last second shot. And this is the essentially how the explosive gets wired and how it gets detonated at the end.
And you know what though too, when we just look back, Jordan has been in these moments where it was about winning and not so much him, right?
Correct.
It was about winning the game, and he was able to put himself, like that was his goal, right? And there's too many times, there's just enough amount of times where Pippen, when given those opportunities, like even when he waited to get the surgery, like Jordan would have never thought about doing that. I mean, Jordan, he wanted to play when he was on that restriction. Every other player is like looking, not especially nowadays, they're like, oh, I'm not going to risk it, blah, 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 blah. Jordan couldn't think beyond that moment, of winning. Now, at the moment, he thought he needed to be in there so they could win the game, but he would have never missed that. And that's like it. Sometimes the stats and all the stuff you need to put that aside and show like who shows up in those moments. And like that's like another big issue. He like that's not Jordan-esque, where it's about winning. And there's at least two big examples where Pippen just was like, I'm a little bit more important than the team, or about wins. You know what I mean? So,
no,
man,
that's such a good point. It's almost like a microcosm. There's the moment of him not coming in. Just hear me out here for a second. I'm gonna do one of my Brian things. It's a microcosm of MJ accepting the role that Phil Jackson imparts on him in order to win. You know what I mean? Him embracing what Phil is bringing, the triangle offense, and saying, well, what Tex Winter is bringing, the triangle offense, and saying, okay, in order to win, I need to do less, is what you're saying, right? Okay, all right. Not that I need to do a little bit less. You know what I mean? Less scoring, less handling of the ball. Essentially, what I pointed out on Twitter, his usage rate drops significantly when Phil takes over. And I had to point this out to somebody because whatever. His usage rate drops when Phil takes over.
Right.
And in this one moment, it's a microcosm of that entire storyline. It's okay, Scotty, we need you to do less in this moment. And Scotty couldn't accept it. You know what I mean? See, that makes sense, right? It didn't even take that long to get into.
Yeah, that was an insecurity thing by Scotty.
For sure. Absolutely. All right, let's talk about his family. And I don't want to spend too much time here because this is dark and ugly. But it needs to be talked about because I've been saying that this is a whole propaganda MJ thing. Everyone, people admire their fathers, and that's fine, right? You know what I mean? I think a lot of people put their fathers on a pedestal. All of that is okay. MJ has his father. I mean, MJ admires his father. You know what I mean? In a way that I know all of the stories of his father, but I almost thought I was lied to. Watching this episode, I was like, man, all the stories I know about MJ's father, are they even true? Because this shit, the way MJ talks about his father, you would think this man is done negative. So I had to go back and redo the research that I already knew about. And they don't touch base on any of it. Even Dolores, to her, I don't know, to her credit or to her dismay, whichever one you want to say here, because she just plays her part, right? She quote unquote plays her part. She doesn't speak out of line about his father, doesn't talk anything about any infidelity. Even the story of him being in North Carolina is covered up by him playing golf with his friends, not, you know, the stuff that we've talked about, Vic, on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And this just lends more to me about this being more about, this is like, tell me I'm wrong. This is propaganda.
So I
don't want to say I don't want to say I'm sorry. I don't want to say propaganda because it's not literally propaganda, but you know, you get the point.
Yeah. So there's a lot because you mentioned a lot. So first off, I think it's actually to Dolores' benefit.
Okay.
That they don't bring this up, and in fact, she never brings it up either.
Mm-hmm.
To the point, Dolores actually wrote at least one book after MJ becomes, you know, super duper famous about like how to be a good mother and the nucleus family. Mm-hmm. So if it comes out that her husband was sexually abusing her daughter, mm-hmm. and she didn't do anything about it, then that's not gonna be a good look for her. She also did speaking tours with mothers, basically telling them how to be a good mom.
Yeah. And
she might still do all that. So again, she was also still married to this guy when he passed, to James Jordan. Now, everything I have ever read about him, there are people that would say both will come from both ends of the spectrum, right? He was not a good person. He was the best, right? And in the case of when you say things like the truth is sometimes in the middle, that's not true all the time. But I think that is true when you talk about people. No one is ever going to be as good at their best day, or no one's ever going to be as bad as they are on their worst, right? We exist in shades of gray. We are not black, we're not white. Well, you know what I mean.
And we aren't that either. So
yeah. So, but yeah, there's so much they could have dove into, that they chose not to. And the thing is, at first I'm like this kind of does. At first I'm like, this might be a disservice because there's more to this story. But then again, when I thought about it longer, I have to keep in mind that this is supposed to be, for the most part, about the 1998 season. Mm-hmm. And then all this other stuff is just context to the end of this basketball team, not necessarily Michael Jordan's personal life.
Correct. That's true.
So, and the thing is, I actually heard the director, Jason, whatever the hell his name is, where somebody asked him, why didn't he talk about him cheating on Juanita, Michael Jordan? Why didn't he talk about his extramarital affairs? And he said, well, listen, if that was very specific to Michael, if that was very specific to what happened in the 1998 season, then maybe we get into that. But he's like, but like, this isn't just, that wasn't just a Michael Jordan thing. That was every NBA player thing for the most part. And he said it didn't have an effect on what happens at the end of 1998. And that's why we don't talk about it. So if that's the argument made for not bringing up all the crazy family stuff, and then like, there's so much more. Like Nike gave his father a store, like a Nike store that he ran into the fucking ground because he wouldn't pay He wouldn't pay for stuff he was buying. But again, like, does that affect the 1998 season? Probably not. Is it interesting and compelling, and does it give us a better understanding of the person? Yes. So, but I don't. But what's the main objective here, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of conflicted on it. Like, to a degree, like, I think this is just about Michael Jordan, right? And to get into that messy type of tabloid stuff that I think we like, you know, that we tend to, like, people tend to gravitate to, would kind of take away from what it was. It really, the whole thing was, you know, they do paint him in, like, in a good light, you know, in a positive light.
Yeah.
But they also, like, it's you just see Jordan's love for that man. And that's it, bro. And because the chain reaction from that love to that loss sends my man into a pretty crazy, like, type of time in his life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's all they really had to show, right? Because even despite, if they talk about all that bad stuff that his dad did, whatever, it's still his dad. And he still loved them. It doesn't matter. Right. You could have all your flaws, but your dad is your dad. You know what I mean? So they could have dove deeper, but, you know, think about it. Just in that a little bit of time, you know, like, how much time are they going to spend on this pop? You know, like that. He was and then that's embarrassing, you know, to the mom. You know, so it's like things. You know, people. You know, families are complicated, and but yeah, like, and of course, since Jordan does have a hand on this, like, no one's going to let their dad be dragged, you know, for, you know, about all the other crazy stuff, because that's embarrassing. So, you know, I think they just kept it to show, like, his love and how deeply his father influenced him. And it's crazy because, as you don't really think of his dad as, like, a smart dude, right? Like you said, he just ran a store, like, but he listened to his dad. And it's just, some people have that relationship with their parents. I mean, I have family members who, you know, they're up and down, and their kids will swear by their parent, even though their parent is, like, out of whack,
right?
You know, and, you know, you can't say anything to them, you know, about their parents. So I really think that's just, like, one of the reasons why they, you know, they bring that. I mean, it's very pivotal.
James Jordan is not a key figure on the Bulls basketball team, right? And at least when I heard the director's perspective of it, like, yesterday, he was saying that, like, this is about the 1998 season, and any storyline that we thought was relevant to what happens in 1998, we added.
Well, why are we saying that his father is relevant to 1998 because MJ comes back after baseball? Why then? What is the relevance of talking about his dad at all?
Because he's part of the reason why he left. He's part of the reason.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So that's the reason we're saying is relevant.
Yeah.
Here's another to support your guys' argument. This is also from the perspective of Michael Jordan. I think we're telling MJ's story from MJ's eyes, almost. Yep.
Right.
And we're saying this is how MJ views his father.
Right.
With that said, though, I do think it's important, and I'm gonna bring up two things that are two reasons why I think it's important. One, because if you didn't know anything about Michael Jordan, you don't even know he has a sister. Watching this documentary, they don't ever talk about Dolores Jordan. There are two sisters.
He has two sisters.
One of which, who again, allegedly was, raped by her father for a 10-year period of time.
Yeah.
Which resulted in a huge, like a familial explosion where she tells her mother, and her mother essentially, but to your point, doesn't believe her, which is a thing you see often in these situations. And then his sister, that's Dolores, the sister, is ostracized essentially from the family.
Yeah.
So that is one perspective as to why it's important. Two, because if we're really truly supposed to see MJ as a complicated figure, right? We're supposed to see MJ raw and uncut here. Well, it's important to view MJ in two. I'm gonna add two things to this real quick. Two branches to this one branch right here. One, it's important because this man has an undying love for a man who is less than imperfect. But if you didn't know him, you would be like, oh, this dude's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Okay?
He should have gone to jail.
Correct. If you knew your father had done these things, listen, I understand that people have undying love for their fathers, but I like to think that at a certain point you become honest about the actions of your parents.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you can accept them. You know, I've had like very honest conversations with my mom, especially, you know, where I'm able to accept how we were raised, and it's all good. It's no big deal. I don't, have like a dream-like idea of what my growing up was. So that gives us one image of Michael, right? In fact, I think it adds to the point that MJ is so singularly focused, he doesn't even see these distractions. He is focused on one thing. But two, I want to mention a tweet. And you probably saw me respond to, you did see me respond to this, to Jamal Crawford's tweet, right? Where Jamal Crawford said, one thing that is getting pointed out in this documentary,
raised right,
is that MJ was raised right, and how having such a strong like home is important. And it's like, not really. And because in a selfish this is going to be the most selfish shit I say maybe ever, in the most selfish fucking way, to a LeBron stan who's going to say, well, look at how MJ was raised, man. He had both parents at home, came from a good, strong home. And of course, he had every opportunity to become the greatest basketball player. LeBron, single family home, mom, fucking Delonte West, maybe, a whole thing, right? He had this complicated life. And it's like, no. They're telling you a fiction here. You know what I mean? They're not telling you a fiction by, they're telling you a fiction by omission. You know what I mean? They're omitting a lot of things that happen that makes his life a whole lot more complicated than it was, and makes it that much more impressive what he does. Those are the reasons why I view them some importance. I'm not saying that we need to spend an episode or even 10 minutes on, we don't even need to get into specifics about James Jordan, but just to say, to have one of the writers just be like, listen, James is a very complicated figure.
Correct. I agree with that.
Michael, he is the most important man in the world. But if you view some of the things that he did, some of the allegations against him is not pretty. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
Just paint the picture. That's all. Hey, put this out there. That's it. So this brings me to my next point. Unless you guys want to add something to what I just said. You want to add something to that?
No, that's what I wanted to say too, is that I just, in the very least, like, just to not paint this person as a saint, because that's also it's also a problem when we put these people on pedestals that no one could ever live up to. It's just to at least acknowledge he was not a saint, and although Michael saw him in this very particular light, he was not that for a lot of other people.
Correct. To almost the rest of the family, almost. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is about so the Jordan family, Dolores, like, I guess Junior, they called her Sis. So Sis and I forget the oldest brother's name. Those two were much older than Larry, Michael, and I think his youngest sister is named Rosalind. They were much older, and in fact, they stayed in Carolina when James and Dolores went to New York, where Michael was born. Okay. So they already have they always had like a very weird relationship anyway. Like the older siblings resented the younger siblings. It's very complicated. Yeah, it's almost like a immigrant kind of family thing. So he wasn't even close to Sis. You know what I mean? So like something like that he wouldn't even never known. Like they're 10 years apart, I think.
So no, this is all important context right here. All of this.
Right. But again, important context, if that's the story you want to tell, which I don't think it was. Like if there's a documentary, a 10-part documentary about just Jordan the life, like if this guy, what's his name, Ronald or Roland Lazenby, takes his book and makes it into a documentary, then all that has to be in it. Yeah. But in the very least, yes, I agree that they should have been like, James meant everything to Michael, but James was a very different things to everyone else. Yeah. And it's not a coincidence that Dolores was not even on the same side of the country as her husband when he died. And it wasn't until 2 days after his birthday that they were like, oh, maybe something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, where's my dad? It's his birthday. We're going to celebrate it together as a family.
Yep.
No, it was like, oh, he was gone for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what?
And it's funny because Bomani Jones tweeted, man, just a different time. You know, somebody goes missing for 2 days and you know, because it's a different time, no one thinks to reach out. It's like, no, that's not true. It's a different time. Sure, you can go missing for a day. But if it's your father, you know, if it's like a loving husband and wife, no one's husband goes missing for a day from a wife that loves him dearly. And the wife is like, no, it's all good. You know, he'll be back tomorrow or the next day. No, that doesn't make any fucking sense. If you are to believe the picture they paint of the family here, this nucleus, then that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? That's a complicated question in itself.
Yeah, I agree. And then also, like, it's not the 1960s where husbands would just be out for 13 hours a day and the wife wasn't allowed to say anything. Like, Dolores Jordan could have blew this up anytime she wanted. And you know, James knew that.
And one last thing too, and this has nothing. This has actually a lot to do with it, kind of. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But to your point, right? What I'm about to say has nothing to do with this documentary because it's from Michael's perspective. But in reality, it has a lot to do with Michael's life. And it's that everything you read is about how Dolores Jordan's family is where Michael gets Michael from. You know what I mean? They credit that side of the family is why Michael is driven, because Dolores is the one who's the driven one. All of that family is the driven, like the ones that are like the tastemakers and the successful ones. James Jordan's family is not that. You know what I mean? And James Jordan, goddamn sure, is not that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so yeah, from the perspective of this is MJ's story, sure, it doesn't make sense to talk about that. But like I don't know, just feel like that context needs to be added because people are getting, if you're giving someone a documentary, we're supposed to be giving facts here, right? And telling a story factually. And again, this goes back to whether it's propaganda or not, whatever you want to say it is, it's not telling the story factually. It's not giving the entire story. It's saying Michael is successful because of his love for James, but and that's all good. James is a saint. Fine, okay, move on, I guess. You know what I mean? So I don't know. The next propaganda piece is the baseball. Let's talk about his baseball. Now, so I just want to say this.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I've ever remembered is that MJ was not good at baseball. He hits 200 in the minor leagues, but as they said pretty much in the beginning, is he starts off on a 13-game hit streak, which is going to have a lot to do with hitting 200. You know what I mean? Because if you start off on a 13-game hit streak, that means at least every game you're going 1 for 3. And it's because they're all feeding him fastballs, essentially, which is, you know, in baseball, not the easy. I don't want to say it's the easiest pitch to hit because no pitch is easy to fucking hit. But it's the easiest pitch to hit. You know what I mean? If you're just getting a dose of fastballs, you're going to time it and hit it. Especially if to MJ's credit, you're this world-class athlete with incredible hand-eye coordination, right? But also the fielding. His fielding was terrible. You know what I mean? So I don't ever remember the way they paint this. I don't ever remember it be ever being painted this way. Now I will say this to counter what I just said, because I don't even know where I fall on this. MJ does have a point about people want to see you fail. That's another thing. It's a note I wrote down. People want to see you fail. And baseball fucking writers especially. I mean, baseball writers are the fucking worst. I don't even want to say they're the worst because it's like kind of whatever.
No,
like,
they are the worst.
They're the worst. They're all this fucking the integrity of the game and blah 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 and all this bullshit. And you know, okay, whatever. You guys are sure you're the keepers of the game. But the way you vote for MVP votes and the way you vote, it's all bullshit. And it's there's like mad people who are always angry about the way you guys vote for Cy Young winners and all this shit. So this is not a baseball podcast.
All of it.
Yeah, correct. So there could have very well been a negative slant painted to MJ's baseball time. You know, when we were growing up, that would make us believe that. But I don't ever remember the way that they tell the story of MJ playing baseball. Even MJ Rides the Bus doesn't tell the story this way. You know what I mean? It tells a far more bleak picture of his time playing baseball. Fred, you're muted. Making great points,
they definitely like I remember that time, and like they were just trashing that dude. Like and I don't know if it's like completely justified, just because the fact that he's so great, you know, there's this expectation, and again, from that baseball standpoint, how these dudes are, like always making mockery of the game. I'm pretty sure they're saying the same thing about like Tim Tebow, or whatever. So, I mean, the fact is, what everyone's saying is that, yeah, he was improving. And they could see with that type of improvement within that short window of time, he might have been able to make it to the majors. Yeah, it could be propaganda, because like I never watch a Birmingham Barons game, and that's very, that's probably subject to opinion. But I mean, like, just the fact that for you to go into that level, not play baseball since 17, and go into that minor league type system, and even hit the ball, even to hit a fastball,
absolutely,
is crazy insane.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Absolutely.
You can't even. You can have athletes, and there's plenty of athletes I know that if we took them to Burholm on the fast pitch joint, they ain't gonna hit that. They ain't gonna hit it the batting cage on the fastest speed. So I mean, just the fact that he was able to do that shows like a glimpse of like kind of what he can do, and then you bring that psychotic piece to it. Maybe it's like a fantasy that he would make it to the majors, but I mean, there's plenty of guys he might have made it to the majors, but not been good.
He could have just rolled the bench. I mean, it's definitely like, I think when we hear he would have made the majors, we think he's going to be Ken Griffey, because Michael Jordan, right? You go from being literally the best player to play basketball to not hitting 300. Like, people just assume you're great. So now you have an expectation. And this is the thing why he catches so much heat for everything he does. So he did basketball to the highest level. Everything you now do has to meet that expectation. Could he have – I don't know. I'm not a baseball scout. I don't know what he could do. But it's not unfeasible to me that he could have been someone's backup right field. Like, that I'm sure, like, I'm so certain that could have happened eventually. But then, like, if you're Michael Jordan, why would you even want that?
Yeah, and I feel like baseball is such a transient sport where, like, these guys just go from different clubs, and they could, they might play a couple games in the majors, and there's just so many people in that system that can bounce up and down. Yeah, he probably could have done that. So many
games. There's almost 200 games. Like,
I think this is the reason of the backlash. I mean, why people went in on him, because we were mad that he wasn't playing basketball anymore.
Correct.
And it's like anger, because you're like, you need to be playing basketball. Like, I can tell you, like, Brian, I don't know if you remember, but like I remember where I was when I heard Michael Jordan retired first. My dad walked into my room. I think I told you guys the story 100 times. He walked into my room.
Tearing up again. You're already tearing up.
In the morning. I think it was on a school night day too. I can't remember what day it was. I can't remember the day, but I remember just being in the covers, and he woke me up with that news, and I started crying, and I hit my pillow, and I said, it's just because his dad died. Like, I don't even realize, like, how bad that can affect somebody. Like, oh, he should
fuck his dad father, man. I hate him. I hate his dad father. No.
Yeah. Dude, I was like furious. So, just to, like, even knowing that there was some comfort that he was still playing pro sport. Like, he was still, like, because I just love Michael Jordan. Yeah, I was just on, so, yeah, man, like that stage, people went in on him. I remember that Sports Illustrated cover, and I was like, dang, it's hard to see your hero being like thrashed like that.
Yeah, and to add some perspective, so Terry Francona said he thinks if MJ gets 1,500 at bats, 1,500 more at bats,
right,
he has a chance. Now, 1,500 at bats, for context, that's 3 full MLB seasons. You know what I mean? And they don't play that many games in AA. So who knows how much time that actually needs. But I think that's really a credit to what they're really saying is this is a credit to his work ethic. You know what I mean? Is that they see somebody whose work ethic is sufficient for someone who is Michael Jordan. And they're like, yeah, if he's bringing this level of intensity of work every day to practice, he could sure have a chance.
Yeah, just think of the math. All those at-bats, think about all the other at bats that he has that are not official. That,
yeah, for sure. And listen, Ryan Howard had 3,000, 4,000 at bats, and that motherfucker could never hit a breaking ball. Torres Achilles trying to hit one. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, Ryan Howard doesn't deserve that.
I wanted to dispel a myth about so Jordan. So baseball was the first sport he played, right? And he actually was considered one of the best baseball players as like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old. By the time he was in high school, though, he already wasn't a great hitter. He already wasn't. He didn't have the arm strength to throw people out because he played shortstop as a little kid, and then as he got older, he already didn't have the fielding skills.
Yeah.
Or like the quick, the strong enough arm to throw people out. So he ends up quitting baseball in high school because he's not as good as he thought he was going to be. So sometimes people look back, it's like, oh, he was this baseball prodigy. He was a prodigy for like 2 years.
Yeah. Very, very early.
From like 10 to 12. And then from there, he was just like everybody else.
Yeah. Listen, so Lucas is a baseball prodigy right now, but that may not mean shit in 4 years. Hopefully he stays one, though. Make a switch.
But even that, though, I think even leads more to the credit that, like, he wasn't even, in comparison to, like, the guys he's playing against, who would have been, even in AA, they would have been the best players on their baseball team in high school. For him to do what he did, I still think is something.
It's still, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Like I said, it's just the way that the picture is painted. I think in the documentaries, he's a lot closer. Again, even just saying 1,500 at bats, seeing professional pitching, you know what I mean, is really the point. Is like,
yeah,
well, that doesn't mean that he'll be there tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's like 2.5 years down the line, which is what happens. A lot of these, in baseball, that's baseball, right? You're the number 1 overall baseball pick, but you're sitting in the minor league for 2 years, 3 years before you come up in some cases, unless you're like a Mike Trout or fucking Aaron Judge, someone who's so like so fucking good, clearly.
I read a Derek Jeter biography when I was in high school, and Derek Jeter, he was drafted out of high school by the Yankees.
Yep.
And he said he remembered his first day at single A ball and being like, holy shit, these guys can throw 80 miles an hour. Like, he's like in high school, if a guy could throw over 85, he was unhittable.
Yep.
And this is coming from Derek fucking Jeter.
Yeah, Derek Jeter.
Yeah, you have like regular dudes like in high school, like at my old high school, before I came to doctor, we had a dude who like he bat like 500 or 600, but and he didn't do nothing. Like he didn't even go to the, what I mean? It just depends. Like it really depends on the type of talent you play. I was like, dang, they bet that in high.
I just want to point out that anytime any pitcher I've ever played against basketball is an incredible shooter. I don't know if you guys have had that experience.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Anytime I played against someone who was a pitcher, I played against this one dude who was one
pitcher or quarterback too.
Or quarterback, yeah. But it's something about that. But they were all incredible shooters. The pitcher, there was one pitcher I played with. He actually pitched at Temple. He was 6'7", could shoot, lights out. Incredible shooter. You know what I mean? Anyway, but yeah, this is just again more propaganda. So let's see what else is there to cover here on episode 7. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Andrew Luck is the most recent version of what happened to MJ. The most recent one I could think of.
Yeah.
No one was as big as MJ. So MJ made the world literally stop without the internet. You know what I mean? And there was just that one moment where when Andrew Luck announced his retirement, everybody was like, "Oh, what the fuck is going on here?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the difference to one, we were getting conditioned to this happening to NFL athletes. It just had not been happening to quarterbacks specifically. And Andrew Luck is your Pro Bowl or MVP candidate, all of that, and he steps away from the game just kind of abruptly. That's the most recent one. I don't know if you guys could think of anything recent like that happening.
No, I actually thought of that one too, and also because it happened right before training camp, which is the same thing with Michael in '93. He retires in August, right before they're about to start getting back into basketball.
Yeah, and it's rough because like Andrew Luck is no Michael Jordan. Like as far as like the game, like you have to have the equivalent of like a Tom Brady, doing
and even
that.
I don't even think that. I don't even think, especially not now.
Yeah.
At Tom Brady at the same point. What is it? MJ retires? Was that 8 years into his career?
84 to 93.
Or 9 years, right into his career is when he retires first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's 9 year is 2010. Is that after the Randy Moss season?
Yeah, right? Because isn't Randy Moss 2009?
I can't remember.
Oh.
So if it's after the Randy Moss season, then yeah, maybe it makes his big news. But before the Randy Moss season, Tom Brady isn't that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. It's
you know what I mean?
It's like Michael Jordan is just one of those once in a lifetime players, like a diamond. Like, and he lifted the sport. I don't know if Tom Brady necessarily lifted the sport. Everyone loves football.
To MJ's credit, well, it's not to anyone's credit actually. Football, I think, is a harder sport to lift with one person. It's just not built that way. Basketball is the singular expression. So MJ is the winner with the numbers. You know what I mean? Which is what we had not seen yet. You know what I mean? Larry was close to that, but you had Bill, who was the winner, not necessarily with the numbers. Will is with the numbers, but not necessarily with the winning. Jerry West, the numbers, not with the winning. You have a lot of guys who had one or the other. MJ had both. And we didn't see that. Tom Brady was not the winner with the numbers until later on in his career. The last thing I want to say on episode 7. Oh, they played Coolio, Fantastic Voyage, fire.
Mm-hmm.
Coolio is one step removed from I don't want to spend too much time on Coolio, but he's one step removed from being a one-hit wonder. You know what I mean? Because it's Fantastic Voyage, and then it's Gangster's Paradise, and that's it, pretty much, for Coolio.
Yeah.
But for him, those are two bangers. It's two bangers. I think he had one other song, but neither as big as that. So good for Coolio.
The
did you guys
director
watch him on Hot Ones, by the way?
Coolio?
Yeah, on Hot Ones.
No, but I've heard it's legendary though.
Season 1. My man runs through these wings like they don't fucking exist. Bro,
he's like a cook.
Yo, it's the craziest thing. He adds mad sauce at the end to the last wing, and he suffers a little bit from that, but it's so impressive how much sauce he puts on the last wing. It's Michael Jordan-esque, actually.
Yeah, the Hot Ones are dope. I heard I was listening to the director say he had a different song there, and he didn't like it. So he basically just Googled 90 rap, looked through a list, and played a few of them. And he was like, all right. He kind of plays it off as for him it was, and he loves talking about the music. He's he takes the music very seriously. The director Jason, whatever the fuck his last name is. But apparently with that one, it kind of fell into place. It wasn't him.
That's fucking so lucky because it's it's the perfect song. The Fantastic Voyage into Baseball. You know what I mean? And it works out. My last
It's also on the Space Jam soundtrack. Just to throw that.
Oh, look at this, man. That's two days straight that somebody had to hit me with some Space Jam knowledge. Vic, you hit me yesterday with Deshaun Bradley because I forgot. Listen, Space Jam is not a good movie. I watched it once. I never watched it again. All right?
Space Jam is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
You're a bunch of haters.
It's fantasy.
You're fantasy.
You're right.
This guy watches Dungeons and Dragons, and then he says Space Jam is fantasy. What is this?
You know what? I want to be disrespected that you disrespect the Game of Thrones that way, but that's such a good fucking joke that I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna eat that joint. The last thing.
Yeah.
Just a reference to bullshit. So David Stern, when they ask him about the suspension thing.
Oh yeah.
And he says it's total. Oh no, actually I don't think David Stern said. I think it's one of the writers who says
the writer.
total,
yeah. Oh, it wasn't it. Was he the writer? Or was he the attorney?
Or the attorney, but whatever one.
But
it was one.
He was like, "How can I put this delicately?"
Yeah.
It was total bullshit.
It's total bullshit, and that has been for me has been a double entendre throughout this entire series. It's total bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's the story pretty much from episode 1, from Pippin's injury to all of the shit that follows. It's bullshit. It's all the shit that the Bulls are dealing with at this time. I wrote that down. Literally, anytime someone says bullshit, it always feels prescient when they say it in the documentary, in the context of the documentary. So I wrote that down.
Right.
No Bison Dele. You know what I mean?
Well, he doesn't show up on the team until the trade deadline of 97.
You're right. I'm sorry. You know what? I didn't need to write that down. Stupid me. I forgot. They did 96. They're gonna do 97, episode 9. It almost pains me that I didn't see the arc of it coming until literally the last episode last night. I was like, oh, every year every episode is a different year leading up to 98, and the last episode will be 98. Meanwhile, I'm seeing every single layer of the bullshit, and I can find every theme and layer, but I couldn't see this one fucking coming.
What do you think's gonna happen next?
Yeah, what's next, man? Are we gonna go back to 86?
Following playoff run.
Yeah, like what a fucking idiot I am.
It's a propaganda piece.
Yeah, really taking out the wind
really
from under my wings.
They won't even talk about Bison Daylight before he changed his name. It's gonna be Byron Williams in the fucking doc.
Which is, I mean, that's gonna be a good conversation next week, because there's a real conversation that Brian Williams is better for the Bulls than Dennis Rodman in the playoff run. He only plays 9 games for them, which was weird. I thought he was there. I thought he played more games than that, because I remember. So there's a couple things I remember vividly. I don't remember his retirement vividly. I remember somewhat. I think my father picked me up and told us in the car, is I think how it happened. But I remember him coming back. I remember the Sunday. I remember it against the Pacers. I remember sitting, laying down in my front room watching the game. So I remember that. And I remember where I was when I saw Bison Dele busting the Jazz ass. You know what I mean? Dunking all over Karl Malone. I remember where I was when I watched that. So I don't know. For some reason, he just always stuck out to me. And then obviously, dies tragically. His brother kills him, which we'll talk about next week.
Yeah.
All right.
I was at Bobby Kavanaugh's house.
At who?
When Jordan came back. My friend Bobby Kavanaugh.
Is that the guy who was running for Senate recently or whatever, and he was raping other girls?
No.
This is the Kavanaugh.
No, yeah, that's.
Is that where we all go drinking on Delaware? I don't know. I'm done. I got no other jokes.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, I'm done. Is there any? Can we
done?
I think I'm done. Now.
We gotta move on. We're gonna move on now. Okay, we're done. Episode 7, right? Yeah. Anything else you want to add about episode 7? Oh no, well, actually, hold on. We didn't talk too much. Listen, I just want to bring back about the end of the episode, because we kind of piecemealed it. Yes. Yeah. We definitely should talk about that more.
There is no better illustration to how I don't understand Michael Jordan's mindset, but I could never relate to that, because I was confused as to why he started crying. You know what I mean? But it just, I think, just shows how again, singularly focused is the other word that I keep saying, but it's just, there's nothing else I can say. It's 20 years later, 25 years later, you know what I mean? Whatever it is. So yeah, 22 years later, and he literally breaks down crying, talking about what it took to win. You know what I mean? What it takes to win. And if you don't want to play that way, you don't have to. And that, man, that was fucking just, the goosebumps that ensued from watching just that montage and that speech. You didn't win anything. You know what I mean? I felt like he was shitting on me, and I felt so inspired by it. You know what I mean? I was like, you're right, MJ. I haven't won shit. Man, talk about it.
It reminded me of one thing that's not necessarily directly related, but I just thought it was pretty ironic. But it reminded me of when Isaiah Thomas was talking about the 1988 finals they lost to the Lakers. When he breaks his ankle, plays on it anyway, but they end up losing because he has a fucking broken ankle. And he just breaks down into tears talking about it years later, because of the pain that it still causes him, that they weren't able to get over the hump. So in one way that it just reminds me like these people are actually human. And sometimes you look at them as these just beings that can do things that we can't do. And therefore they're almost not human, but that's not true. And the amount of emotion and sacrifice they put mentally to do the things that they end up doing. But even more so, it's the conversation, right? And this is why I think when he said people are gonna watch think I'm an asshole, right? Again, I can come back, we sitting here are basketball fans, right? We're not just sports fans. We are specifically basketball fans. We come with a different set of prior knowledge, right? We're the students that are going to get A's in the NBA class, because we did our own homework already.
Well, some of us are. I don't know. No, I'm joking.
But then after that, but I think it's a lot of it is just almost like him projecting his feelings of himself when he looks back at that time. And it's like when he's talking about that, he's like, yeah, but he's almost like, you think I didn't want to be a nice guy? He said he literally says that in that episode. I think I'm a nice guy. Like, and he didn't say in this way, but like, look at all this shit I did for people. I don't know these people that fucking Scotty Burrell's bringing into our locker room after I have to sign 1,000 autographs. There's not shit I don't want to do with my life, but I sit here with these people and I talk to them for 20 fucking minutes. He probably goes out to eat dinner with them or something, and it's like, yeah, I wish I could have been the nice guy, but you didn't win shit, so you don't know what it takes. So I'm showing you.
Yeah.
And that requires a tremendous amount of sacrifice.
Yeah, the price for winning. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Fred.
Yeah, no, and I think when I saw that, because you really don't see him get emotional anywhere else. I can't remember.
In that way.
In that way. And and I was like, why did he get like that? Like, I'm talking about that, like, because you don't really even see him really get like that when talking about his dad's death. And I wonder if he knows that he's to win. He sacrificed a lot of important things. And the more I've been doing like a little research and stuff like that, and just knowing everything he's done. I can't. I feel like his family took a L on that. Like, I can't imagine him being like a present father, that much, with such a busy, insane schedule. And that's why almost, all this stuff, craziness with his dad, he's able to distance himself from that because he was so busy. Right. So when you're not living, like, if he was like living with them and, was a normal Joe Schmo, yeah, but guess what? He didn't have to really deal with the dirt, for when you live far away, or, even just have that distance and you're so busy with your own schedule. He's concentrating on his life. He even said he's everything was about his career. When we talked about the political stuff, he was just solely focused on his career, business, and golf. Like, my man golfed in so insane amount of times that, and hours, that he probably could have done other things, but everything he did was competition. And I think at that moment there was a sense of that he put a lot of things on the line to win that, and he knows that you wouldn't do it, and he knows you wouldn't do it, right? And it's not that you're right or wrong. You might have chose your family, which will probably be the more honorable fate. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think that's what I got from it.
Yeah. I mean, you almost wonder too, even about the golf, what you just said about the golf. Like, you almost wonder if he liked playing golf because he knew that was the only time he could be alone. You know what I mean? Because everyone at the golf course knows you're not crossing lines and shit like that to go see somebody, and it's a time where he can actually not be swarmed by hundreds of people. Because to what Vic said, and to what we said last week, man, we never saw MJ off in an interview. We don't ever see him off. You know what I mean? Like, that dude's always on, always just never a dick, never an asshole. You never see him be an asshole to any fans. And yeah, it's the price that he had to pay to win. Is what is essentially what makes him emotional. And we, knowing there's only like one other person or two other people in the world who've won at that level that consistently, who could probably relate. Like, Bill Russell's probably watching that and is tearing up also, knowing that, yeah, that's what it cost to win, and he wouldn't even understand still at the level that MJ was in terms of fame and popularity too. So
and it could also be he misses it.
Yeah, that too. No, for sure. Which again, if you read some of the articles later in his life, he very much does miss it. Anytime someone says LeBron is better than MJ, somewhere MJ gets like a crook in his fucking neck and wants to come back and play. You know what I mean? Like, he fucking knows 100%.
I feel like the more you feel like you sacrifice for something, especially in sports, it's like so much of you is left of there, and it's part of your fabric.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So even like the all the years I've done stuff, not that I'm a professional player, but that's part of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people might say, oh, when you guys always meet up, you're always talking about like when, you know, the good old days, because that's part of me. That's my that's like what I, you know, that's part of me. That's what made me the person I am, was that journey through sports and what sports did for me. So when, you know, me as, you know, being like a 16, 17-year-old trying to figure life out, and I'm playing football and I'm learning the lesson of like, keep going, right? You're hurting, you know, and I look to my right and I see all these guys who got my back. We're getting our, you know, our butts handed to us. You know, I learned so much in that, you know, that stays with me. So that gives me like the tingles, you know, like it gives me the goosebumps, you know, those little moments of when I was younger, still, you know, are made me who I am today. And that's Michael Jordan to, you know, that was his whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when people, you know, even question him on if, you know, on that, I could see why that just opened up that, because that's him. That's just like fab. You're questioning the man for who he is.
For sure. Yeah, you're literally every decision he's made up until this point, you're essentially calling that into question by even mentioning that to him. All right, that was great. Both you guys did great there. I'm gonna give you an A. I'm gonna do the what's this dude do around the horn? What's his stupid name? It doesn't matter. He gives us stupid points. I'm giving you both points. All right, let's move on to episode 8.
Yo. Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind. Used to come in